Hello! So this is Wyken Seagrave and this is my second broadcast after the first one, which was a week ago, and the plan is that these should be broadcast every Thursday evening. So since last Thursday I have done a lot of work, and part of what I'm trying to do here is to talk about my life, my work as a writer, as a publisher, a marketeer, and now, it appears, as a broadcaster. And broadcasting is a fairly technical activity, and I have spent a lot of time researching and trying to make it work. And one of the things that I've magically set up during this week is the ability to show you, not that, this. So I can switch over to show you a web browser, and this web browser records my time. It's a piece of software called Toggle, and I use it because it's free, the version I use. It can be accessed from a web browser, or there are apps, so I can access it from my Android phone if I forget to turn off the timer. So it's a timer. You can categorize your activities and record the hours. And what I thought I would show you is, this is the time that I've worked from last Thursday, including last Thursday, until today. I've worked 67 hours, and it's analysed here, and you see that this the brown area, 50 hours has been spent on this, what I'm calling a vlog in my categorization, which I think is the correct term for these things. And I just thought I'd spend a couple of minutes explaining the nightmare, the problems that I've had trying to make it work. What I want this system to do is to allow people to interact, so to make comments, to ask questions during the broadcast. Otherwise, I might just as well record it, edit it, get it correct and perfect before I put it onto YouTube. But the whole point, I wish I brought some water in here, the whole point of broadcasting live is that it can be interactive. But I have to say, it increases the amount of complication no end. I think that the main system that watchers will use to contact me, to send me messages, is through Skype. And I was very keen to make Skype work with this system. Now, this system is broadcast on YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google. Skype is owned by Microsoft. Skype is older than the Google version. Google produced their own version of Skype, which is called Google Hangouts. And in fact, until this week, I had never heard of Google Hangouts. But it's a system very, very similar to Skype. It does everything that Skype does, except it forces you, as far as I can see, to have a Google account. Now, a Google account, I mean, you can't use Skype without a Skype account, so really, it's not such a big deal. And a Google account, in addition, gives you email, which I use for my emails, and lots of other facilities as well. So having a Google account, to me, sounds like a good idea, but I'm aware that there are many people who don't have one and don't particularly want one. They're quite happy with Skype and with whatever other system they're using, Yahoo or whatever, for their mail. So I was very keen to enable people to use Skype. And I'm not sure if it's because Skype and YouTube are owned by different companies. I suspect it might be. But it is extremely difficult to get Skype talking on these live broadcasts. The problem is getting the sound out of Skype. So a lot of those 50 hours that I spent were in working out how do you get the sound out of Skype. And in fact today, in the past 2 or 3 hours, I actually managed to solve the problem. And the solution is to use a system called Virtual Audio Connections, I think it's called, VAC. If you search for VAC 10, you'll find it. And this allows you to rewire the sound inside your machine. So at the moment, I'm taking the sound from a webcam and feeding that into one of these wires, and then feeding that wire into this broadcast system, which is actually produced by an encoder called I've forgotten your name now. Doesn't matter. I should remember. I'm tired. I can assure you I am tired. But it would be nice to get the name of the silly system. Let me just try and find out. No. XSplit. Ha ha! Memory worked. XSplit is the system that I'm using. Again, that's free, unless you want to do anything a bit more fancy, which it does for what I want to do. So, yeah. So VAC was the solution to my problem, finally. As well as being able to show you Chrome web browser, I can also show you a PowerPoint presentation, and I can show you Skype. So if somebody wants to phone in to Skype, then what you have to do, and this has never been tried before, so if anybody is watching, I haven't checked if anybody is watching, I'm assuming that somebody is. If you want to use the name Hotu, let me just try and switch over to this. So in order to join in this conversation, to ask questions, you see, preparing this preparing this PowerPoint presentation took me about 13 hours because, I'll explain why later, but it took a lot of work. But anyway, you can join in to do those things, and what you have to do is Skype to Hotu365. And you can also see the word Hotu365 at the bottom, and I will explain exactly what that means during the course of the next however many minutes it takes. You can also tweet at Hotu365, although I probably won't remember to check the tweets. And I'm sure there are lots of other things I should be doing as well. What I wanted to do as well was to show you this from a friend of mine. She watched the broadcast I made last week, and she said, "I trust you would want my honest opinion, so here goes. I think that for a first attempt it was a bit lengthy. Actually it was bloody long." Now, she doesn't normally swear, so I don't know what came over this lady. "Had you rehearsed this before? Done a dummy run?" There should have been a question mark there. This is from Tina. "You came across rather nervous and repeated yourself once or twice." Well, yeah, I mean the nervosity, the reason I seem nervous then, and probably do now, is that it's fairly complicated to run a live broadcast. If you think about how television works, they have people sitting in front of the camera with the script and probably an auto cue telling them what to say, and another team of other people making the whole technical thing work. I'm having to do everything myself, which is why I seem a bit distracted looking off to different screens. I've got 3 screens here. Anyway, she goes on. And she said, I repeated myself once or twice. If I only repeated myself twice, I did well. Don't fidget, she says. Well, I think I've just explained what this fidgeting is. Although amusing for me, I've never seen you so nervous. It may have put other viewers off. Well, there weren't. I think there were 16 people who have watched the broadcast so far, and probably 8 of those were me, checking different things. But for a first broadcast live, it was informative. Thank you very much. You managed to include everything. Possibly. Entertaining. I like that. You entertain me, and your enthusiasm for HOTU, History of the Universe, is called HOTU, and for the time crystal technology. She told me afterwards that technology is because she now knows there are going to be 10 volumes, and she thought originally it was a trilogy of 3. And then she says in brackets, before you start, I am very much aware that technology, this is not a word, but it sums you up beautifully. I'm not sure why. Anyway, she said, your enthusiasm was wonderful. Ooh, I'm very impressed. I'm very encouraged. That's the word I'm trying to find. Again, my brain is tired. Encouraged. I don't know what your other viewer thought, because I think there was one viewer. I thought there was one viewer watching the previous broadcast, but in fact, I don't think there was. I think it was me. And just this is the broadcast. Let me just try and see the whole screen here and find out how many viewers there are. Oh dear, I don't know. I still can't see how many viewers there are. This is the control. That's going to go a bit wild. Oh well. So let's let's stop that, and let's try and go back to the PowerPoint. Oh, yes, Skype. If anybody is brave enough to call Skype, that's HOTU365. It should make a noise. And that will test whether I've actually managed to sort out his connections between Skype and this XSplit system. Right, so Chrome. That's not Chrome. Oh, not Chrome, sorry, PowerPoint I want. Right. So those are the things you can do if anybody's watching. I'm just trying to figure out if anybody is watching. Oh, one is watching, it's me, again. Okay, that's fine. That makes it a lot less pressure. No pressure. Okay, so let's get rid of that man talking. It puts me off seeing myself. So that's the first slide. So let's try and go on to the next slide here. So the history of the universe. After the last broadcast, the following day, I decided that I would return to a previous project which I had started in 2012, I think, or maybe before that, which was to issue one episode of the History of the Universe, a short email. This was the plan at the time, to have a short email every day, which describes one episode from the history of the universe. So I thought to myself, why don't I revive that and do a short podcast, a short video every day about one part of the history of the universe. So the original idea was called HOTU 365, History of the Universe in 365 episodes. And so the plan now is that I will do these 365 episodes. So each one should be about 5 minutes long. And I'm planning to record 7 of them on a Thursday evening. So as I say, I spent the whole of Wednesday, I spent 13 hours on Wednesday preparing the slides, because I thought slides and videos and other things would be a good way of showing this. And in those 13 hours I managed to prepare 4 presentations, 4 episodes. So I haven't got the 7 episodes. And also, if it takes me 13 hours to prepare 4, that's 3 hours each. So to prepare 7, that's 21 hours. Now, I'm already doing 3 different jobs. If I'm then going to add on 21 hours of preparation, that's not going to work, is it? So at the moment, I'm not sure how this is going to work, but I have got something prepared. So the idea is today I'm going to record at least 1 episode and then split it off, because I found out, although I didn't know this last Thursday, I found out that on YouTube you can actually edit a video. So you upload a video, which is what's happening now, and then you can edit it. So the plan is, so actually what I did, because I didn't know that, I downloaded the MP4 file, edited that, because there was an hour of countdown, I had a countdown at the beginning, cut that out and uploaded it again. The result was that the quality of the final broadcast was pretty poor. Not the quality of my talk, of course, that was extremely high, but the quality of the video emission itself was pretty poor. The quality of the screen resolution was just too low. So this time I will take this broadcast and I won't download it, I'll edit it using YouTube and split it up into a series of episodes. At the moment, this time, probably just 1 episode. So that's the idea. I have to say also, I went to the dentist today, and going to the dentist was a pleasant relief from all this concentration and effort and stress trying to get all this working. Virtual audio cable saved my life. Or is it connection? Virtual audio connection, I think it is. I just check. Oh, don't check. Virtual audio cable. Ho, 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 ho. Okay. So, let me now, since I'm not getting any questions, I'm going to record this first episode of the history of the universe. So it's HOTU 001, and this will be put live on the 1st of January, and there is a website. So among the many other things I've done this week, I've created a website which will hold all these episodes. And yeah, that's it's not finished yet, it's still a work in progress. It's HOTU, HOTU 365.com, which I had on the previous slide. And it's at the bottom of these slides. That's clever. This guy's got some brains. Okay, so here we go. So welcome to the first episode of Hotu 365. This is the episode that will be broadcast on... Oh, I should have timed this. It was 20 past 7 according to my digitally controlled clock. 7:20. I start again. Hello and welcome to the first episode of the History of the Universe in 365 episodes, called Hotu 365. This first episode will be broadcast on the 1st of January, and then subsequent episodes will be broadcast every day on the hotu365.com website. And my name is Wyken Seagrave, and I'm an author, and I've been writing about the history of the universe for many years. I started in 1975 to research the subject and wrote my first book in 1982, I think. Or maybe before that. I produced a website in 1979. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I know stuff about this subject anyway, and right. So that's enough on that. So I thought I'd start by talking about reading this poem, because this poem explains why I think people should know about the history of the universe. It begins to see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. And that poem is the beginning of Auguries of Innocence by William Blake. If you know about the history of the universe, then you know what a grain of sand consists of. You know about the atoms and the molecules which make up the sand particles. You know how grains of sand and grains of dust were a vital part of creating stars and planets and large molecules. You can see in a grain of sand not the whole history of the universe, not the whole world, but you can see a great deal about the inorganic, the non-living side of the world around us. To see a heaven in a wild flower is to look at a flower and to understand why that flower is more evolutionarily developed than other plants, such as ferns and fungi, mushrooms, and to see the relationship between them, and to see why you can look at it and you can understand why flowering plants are of vital importance, not just to us but to all mammals and to insects. By knowing about the evolution of flowering plants and how they fit in to the evolution of life on Earth, you see more than just the beauty of the flower. You see inside it. You see things that cannot be seen on the surface. Yes, a wildflower is beautiful, but the mechanisms that make it work, the hidden things inside it, to my mind, are even more beautiful because they are complicated, but they work, and they have evolved on their own. They have evolved by the force of selective evolution. And that to me is heaven. It's a heavenly thing. In fact, personally, I think we live in heaven. This is heaven. There's a lot wrong with this planet of ours. We do a lot of things not very clever, not very good with it, especially these days. But this is the nearest we are ever going to get to heaven. And I think if you understand how it works, then you appreciate more how incredibly divine it is. To hold infinity in the palm of your hand, well, yeah, I'm not sure about infinity. In fact, we don't know if there is an infinity, but it's poetry, so I won't analyse it too much. And again, eternity in an hour. In William Blake's day, they didn't know very much. We now know that the universe has not been here for eternity, but from a poetical point of view, in the 5 minutes that I will talk now about the history of the universe, we get the closest that we're going to get to eternity, I think. Well, what does the history of the universe cover? It covers most basic science. In order to understand where we've come from, you have to know about cosmology. You have to watch planets and stars forming, stars first, then planets. You have to watch planets evolving, so that's planetary science. You have to watch life begin, so it's chemistry, molecular biology, and then biology. Then you have all of the different branches of biology. You also have the planet, so we study about geology, and also the climate. And then when we come to study civilization, we then have got anthropology, some bits of psychology, politics, economics. It covers most branches of basic science. And the beauty of it is that it shows how these branches of science fit together. It covers human history, and having seen the past trends in human history, you can begin to make predictions about the future. The only way of working out the future is to look at the past. That's what the story attempts to do. This story is sometimes called Big History. An Australian professor called David Christian invented Big History, and that's a well-known name for what I'm calling the history of the universe. In fact, it's slightly different. David Christian concentrates more on the human history side of things, where I look more at the scientific side. It's intended to answer questions that everybody asks, like, where did we come from? Is there a purpose in life? What are the lessons of history? Why are we here? Where are we going? And indeed, where am I going in my life? And if you know a little bit about science, it's a great asset for helping you to understand these questions, but also for getting a job. There is a big demand for educated scientists, people with scientific knowledge. There's far more demand for those skills than there are for some others. So, this series of 365 podcasts similar to this one. You can go to the Hotu 365 website. There you can you subscribe to a daily email newsletter. In fact, it's going to be daily. Perhaps I should change it to have another one for weekly, but the one that's on there now is daily. You can find it on YouTube. I haven't got the link to show, and a link will be no good anyway, but you can find the links on the Hotu 365 website. You can also find it on Google Plus and other places as well. So there's a Twitter account called @Hotu365, and there is a Facebook page as well. So there's lots of ways you can take part by watching the weekly broadcast, by asking questions and comments. I've already talked about this before. During the broadcast, these broadcasts are going to be made on a Thursday evening, and while I'm making these podcasts, these recordings, I won't take questions, but afterwards you can call me on Skype. It's Hotu365 is the Skype name, and you can then come on live and ask a question or discuss with me. And in fact, if you are an expert in this and in any of the fields we cover, you can maybe in the future run an episode yourself. So those are some of the links. That's the Hotu365 website. historyoftheuniverse.com is a website I created years ago which covers this whole story, and there's a book which you can buy on there at a very reasonable price. And I think that's probably the last slide. That is the start of the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. That was 7 minutes. So at least I've achieved something today. I've recorded one episode, and that wasn't too bad. Let's see if there's anybody watching this broadcast. Oh, it says 2 are watching now. One of them is me, I suppose. Any questions? Because there's a chat window. Any questions or comments? Question mark. I think the people who are watching this can see that. And it says comments are disabled for this video. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you can't comment on there. Let's see if you can turn these screens on here. Go back to Chrome. What about Twitter? So if we go to Twitter, no, I don't want to do that. So, are there any comments being made on Twitter that I should be responding to? Oh, you see. So, no comments on Twitter. Okay. So, what else did I want to talk about today? One of the other things I did, I can't remember which day this was, Wednesday morning I think, I found an instruction to myself to send a sample of a book to a reviewer. So I'm now putting on my publisher's hat. I'm having a break from Hotu 365 for a few minutes. So during November, December, I revised the second volume of Time Crystal, which is called The Time Tunnel. And it's planned to be published on Crystal Day 2016, which is the 5th of April. So I then put that aside because I got lots of other stuff to do. But then, what I do in order to try and manage my own time is I use, let me see if I can show you this. Come back to, let me show you Chrome again. So I use a site called Toodle-Doo, and Toodle-Doo is again, it's another one of these potentially free websites, although I actually pay a subscription so I can use it on an Android phone. And I have hundreds of tasks in there, so if I have to do something, it's a to-do list, but it's a to-do list in which you can set dates, you can categorize them, it's, as I say, it's available on Android, you can sort them. For example, one of these lists is my shopping, so I've got a shopping list as well. And so I was browsing through my list of things to do, and one of them said, I don't know if I can see it here now, send, can't see it, but what it said was, send a review copy to some website, I can't remember which website it was, a magazine. So I read the instructions and it said you need to send the book at least 3 months before publication date. So I thought, I can do that because the publication date is the 5th of April and we're now in December, so I've got 3 months. But I hadn't quite finished the book. So I'd finished editing, I'd finished writing it, but I hadn't produced the 5 different versions. I think I mentioned this before. In order to publish a book, you need to produce 5 different versions. I hadn't produced any of them. I hadn't actually finished. I hadn't done the publishing process. I'd done the writing process, and I thought, that's enough. So I then had to run the publishing process to produce the output for CreateSpace. I used 2 different printers, CreateSpace and Ingram. CreateSpace is owned by Amazon. It will print paperback copies and they get printed in South Carolina, somewhere in the States. Ingram is owned by, I forget who. They will produce paperback or hardback copies and they will print in 3 or 4 different locations. So I used Ingram because I wanted a hardback copy of one of my books, a computer book. The trouble with Ingram is they charge you to set up the book ready for printing. Before you print any, you have to pay $50. It's not cheap. And I can understand why they charge, because they have to check your work. CreateSpace is free. To set the book up is free. So I chose to use CreateSpace, obviously trying to save as much money as I can. So I set the book up on CreateSpace. But during the process of setting it up, I mean, I have a long list of instructions, again with my publisher's hat on here. Well, it's only part of a publisher. I'm not sure a publisher would call creating the output the publishing process, but I do, not knowing anything about publishing. Except what I've taught myself. It's book production is what it is. I have a document with 100 and odd pages full of detailed instructions about every step you have to take in order to produce the app. As I was going through this, I realised that bits of the book were not very good. For example, the main thing that had to change was the author's preface. I hadn't rewritten the author's preface ready for the second volume, Time Tunnel. I'd written it for the first volume, illustrated cosmic monopole, but not for the second volume. So that had to be written. During the process of writing that, I decided I had to add things into the glossary. At the end of the book, unlike most works of fiction, there is a glossary. I also had to add things into the bibliography. So I mean, this is a good old-fashioned work of science fiction with the sorts of things that people used to add to them science fiction books many years ago, and have now since dropped out. But so I had to. So that took me hours to do, but I finally produced that, and I'm now waiting to find the time, tomorrow probably, to order a proof copy which I can then send to the magazine, which hopefully will review it. Although whether there will be time to send it from South Carolina to here, and then for me to send it back to, I think it's a Canadian address, I'm not sure. Anyway, so that was another little job that I did this week. Okay, so I've given myself a break. Let me see if I can produce the second edition, the second episode. I don't know what to call these. The second part of the history of the universe, HOTU 002. 00 is in there because there are going to be 365, so I thought keep it numerically consistent. It's better to sort anyway, isn't it? Sorting is always better if you've got the full sets of digits in the beginning. Okay, so here we go. So what's the time? 7:43 where I am. Hello and welcome to the second edition of the History of the Universe, HOTU 002. This will be published on January the 2nd. And in this edition, what's a good word for this? Let me see if there's anybody else. Is there any comments been made on this? What's a good word for this thing? Nobody's made any comments at all. That's not very helpful. It's not. Let's think of a word. It's not an edition. It's not an episode. Episode. I use episode in Time Crystal. I can probably remember episode. Start again. 7:44 now. Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the History of the Universe in 365 episodes. This is episode 2. It will be broadcast on January the 2nd. And in this episode, we're dealing with energy. I'm going to talk about the creation of the universe. I'm going to talk about energy and what it is, and then think about what it means, because part of what I'm trying to achieve with this history of the universe is to think about how do the things that we meet along the way affect us today. And it's pretty obvious that energy has got a huge effect upon civilization today. As I'll come on to in a few moments. Okay, so the creation of the universe. Across the top there, we have the time scale of history, and it's measured in billions of years ago. 0 on the right is now. 14 billion years ago on the left is near the creation. We'll see exactly where the creation is in a minute. The word billion means 1,000 million. And in a later episode I will talk about the words 1,000, million, billion and larger numbers. But the word billion occurs a lot in this story. Most of the time we're going to be talking about billions of years or billions of other things, stars, galaxies and so on. So it's a word that you'll meet and need to understand a little bit more about. But for now, all we're doing is talking about the creation of the universe. So, as far as we know, roughly speaking, the universe was created 13.7 billion years ago. That's 13,700 million years ago. The exact date, well, we've got, I don't know exactly what the latest estimate is, and it keeps changing, but we've got a pretty good understanding of its age by methods that I'll talk about, no doubt, as we go on. Now, many people think that the universe began with a Big Bang, but in fact, and this image here is supposed to be an impression of the Big Bang, so that people think the universe began with a huge explosion, but in fact that was not the beginning of the universe. The universe began before the Big Bang. At least that's one theory. There are various theories, but this is one of them. So the Big Bang was not the beginning. Instead, the universe began with a very small amount of energy, and in fact at that time this energy was all there was, and we don't know where this energy came from. We don't know why the universe began. It's the greatest unknown in this whole story. And we might never know. There are various theories about what could have happened, and no doubt people will get to theorize about it. But because all evidence of where this energy came from was destroyed in what follows, as far as we know anyway, then there can be no evidence about what happened before. So it seems. So what I'm going to do is talk about energy, and I thought this image of a racing horse was a good place to start. This image was made in the 1880s, I think. Oh no, I think he made this one in 1903. An English guy called Edward Muybridge, and apparently he was a little weird, but that's not part of this story. So, energy. What's this horse got to do with energy? What's happening here is that the horse, or the muscles of the horse, are converting chemical energy into movement energy. So we see already that there are here two different types of energy. And in fact it turns out that things are made of energy. The horse itself, and the guy who's riding it, and the ground he's riding on, are forms of energy which are somehow trapped, encapsulated into particles. Matter is a form of energy, and that turns out to be very important later on in the story, because the sun, from where we derive most of our energy today, is a machine. It's a system that turns matter into energy. It liberates the energy from matter. Some matter is disappearing from the sun all the time, and energy in the form of heat and light and other forms of radiation are being released. So everything in the universe is made of energy, and it can take many forms. So I've talked about matter, I've talked about chemical energy, which are the sugars in the muscles of the horse. There are other forms of energy: heat, the heat we feel from the sun, the light, electromagnetic radiation, the flow of electrons in a wire, which we call energy, electricity. So that's a form of movement energy. These are all forms of energy, and there are many others. So everything is made of energy, and there are many forms. Energy can change from one form to another. So that's what's happening in the horse. The chemical energy in his muscles is being destroyed. No. The molecular structure of the chemicals, of the atoms in his muscles, is being changed, and the energy that was binding those atoms together is being changed into movement energy. But the energy is not being destroyed. It's being removed from them, from the chemicals, and is being exchanged for movement energy. So there is a fundamental law in the universe today that says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So that raises the question of, if I said in the last slide that the universe began with a very small amount of energy, so where did all this energy come from? Because the universe is now full of energy. It's not a small amount. I mean, when I'm saying small amount, I'm saying the universe began with the amount of energy in a teaspoon of sugar, perhaps, or less. There's a lot more energy now. Where did it come from? Energy was created. There's a contradiction here. And the important word here is today. Energy cannot be created or destroyed in the universe today. But when the universe was created first, the circumstances were very, very different. And under those strange circumstances, energy was created. We'll come on to that later. Now, here's a challenging statement. Energy is like God. I'm not sure what you mean by God, but people who have a religious faith often believe, as far as I understand it, I don't have a religious faith, but I respect those who do. That's their right. And I think that they believe that God created the universe. So God was there when the universe was created. Well, I've already said that energy was there when the universe was created, and energy has created the universe we see around us. That's my heater making a noise. So there's a similarity there in my mind between energy as the creator and the omnipresent thing and God. We don't understand where energy came from, and people with a faith don't understand where their God came from. Energy exists everywhere, the same as God. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, same as God. And then finally I've said, unlike God, energy can change its form, so, but maybe gods can, I don't know. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that idea in for what it's worth. So, quick reflections on energy. One aim of what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do in R2365, is to learn lessons from the past. Today, we have an energy crisis. The energy that we use, it says all there, almost all of it comes from the sun. We also use nuclear energy, which doesn't actually come from the sun, but most of it does. So the plants that we have, let's go back to the sun. So the sun, as I've already said, converts matter energy into radiation. The radiation comes and reaches the earth. Plants, I missed out a line here. There's an organisation called iter.org that's trying to reproduce the process of the sun, trying to convert matter into energy by a process of nuclear fusion, because if they can make it work, it promises to produce huge amounts of energy with very small pollution. The problem with nuclear energy is that it produces a lot of nuclear waste. The fusion process would produce very little waste, and potentially could produce lots more energy if it can be done in a controlled way. It's very difficult, and technically it's a difficult issue. I was just saying before that the energy comes from the sun, goes into the plants. Plants convert the sunlight into sugars, which is then converted into plant material and food, so the seeds of the plant, the roots and so on, the flowers. We then we eat those seeds and fruits, or we feed them to animals, which then convert them into protein, and we then eat the animals. But the sun is the main source of energy. Also, the plants that were created hundreds of millions of years ago are now fossils, so they produce coal and oil, which our economies rely on. So this is why I'm saying the sun is very important. And that slide said maybe there's a way in the future that we can find new sources of energy. And of course we have sources of energy. We have solar panels, for example, which convert sunlight directly into electricity. So that's the end of my second lecture, and I hope you can join me for the it's not a lecture, it's an episode. I hope you can join me for the third one. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye. And so that has taken me up to the end of the time. I've allotted for myself an hour for this emission. I'm just trying to check if any foolish person has asked a question. They haven't. It still says there are 2 people watching, and I presume that both of those are me. But anyway, it's not been too bad from my point of view. I found it quite interesting. I found the time went quite quickly. I think 2 episodes is as much as I can do in a week. So this is going to take 2.5 years. So how many years? It's going to take a long time. It's going to take more than a year to produce 365 episodes. Oh, what's half of 365? I don't know. If I produce 2 episodes a week, I think that's as much as I can do. And I can probably find the time to prepare 2 a week. So I'm a bit more hopeful now than I was yesterday when I thought this isn't going to work. Thank you for watching, and good night. See if I can stop this now.